Okay, I have 6 o'clock, so I'll call the meeting of the Olive Branch Planning Commission to order. And if we'll have the roll call, please.
Pat Orr.
Here.
Dion Jones. Janice Lewis. Here. Kimberly Remack. Is your microphone on? No. Kimberly Remack.
Present.
Okay, good. How are you doing, Kimberly?
Here. Donnie Singh.
Very good to see you.
Steve Stratton.
Here.
Okay. You've received in your packets the minutes of the April 8th, 2025 meeting. Are there any corrections or additions needed to the minutes? If not, is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I make a motion to approve.
We have a motion from Ms. Singer to approve the minutes. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second
Second.
from Mr. Stratton. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Then the minutes have been approved. The consent agenda item is going to be moved under new business tonight. So I'm going to read that, so it'll be the first item of new business, and then we'll have a staff presentation on this. So we have the application to extend the time to record the approved final plat for Henley Industrial Subdivision submitted by Shane King, Houston Engineering, on behalf of Rand Management LLC, Kraft and 178 LC, and Casa Properties LLC property owners. The 2-lot, 9.89 acre subject property is Zone M2, Heavy Industrial District, and is located on the east side of the intersection of New Craft Road and Highway 178. We'll now have the staff presentation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Planning Commissioners, before you is a request to consider extending the time to record the final plat for this Kraft Henley Industrial Subdivision at the intersection of Old Highway 78 and New Craft Road. You recommended approval of this plat back in 2021. It was presented to the Board of Aldermen and the board approved the plat. The plat before you under consideration, the lots in size are basically the same. The applicant, however, is adding a stormwater management easement at this particular location for a truck stop on lot 1. Now that was kind of permitted in the M2 district at the time. The reason we're pulling this off from the consent agenda to new business is because of the changes in the change in the approval condition, which I want to make sure that the board considers that, or that goes into the official records in the approval of this plat. Ordinarily, in the subdivision regulations, the applicant would have 1 year to record the plat. In this particular case, because of the potential for the use of the site for a truck stop, the new C-store with gas pumps and truck stop regulations that the city adopted, I think towards the end of last year, would apply to this plat with respect to vested rights. So staff recommends that the Planning Commission extend the period for the recordation of the final plat for Lot 1 and 2 of Henley Industrial Subdivision for no more than 1 year, subject, however, to the following condition, and I want to add condition number 4. The use of any of the lots as a convenience store with fuel pumps or as a truck stop is subject to vested rights provisions regarding such uses as stipulated in Article 9, Section 11 of the Zoning Ordinance of the City of Olive Branch, including the requirement that the final plat must be recorded by September 30th, 2025. That is a requirement in those vested right provisions for this piece of property to remain, or this lot to remain vested for the development of the lot as a truck stop. If that day passes and the final plat has not been recorded, the developer would have to go before the Board of Zoning Adjustment to get conditional use permit approval before they can proceed with the development of the site as a truck stop. So I just wanted to put that in the record. That concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any questions of staff on this?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify one thing. So if they don't, if this passes again by September 30th, 2025, if they don't record those lots by then, they got to start the process over again with what's on the rules today, correct?
In terms, when you say start the process all over, do you mean
For like having to go through the get the conditional use permit and stuff like that.
yes, they will have to go to the Board of Zoning Adjustment to get a conditional use permit
Gotcha.
before they're able to do a truck stop.
Any other questions?
And the Board of Zoning Adjustment will have the right to, let me not say the right, the power to vest it in accordance with current regulations, so.
Okay, so the plat does not require public discussion, so I will just open it with the commissioners. Any other discussion or motions that we have towards this item? And the recommendation is to, for 1 year, extend 1 year, subject to all the staff conditions 1 through 4.
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Stratton to approve,
Second.
and we have a second by Mr. Singh. Any other discussion? And once again, we're extending it for 1 year to record the final plat subject to the staff conditions. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, aye. So it's unanimously carried and the motion, application is approved. All right. Also under new business, we have an application for a final plat for Center Hill Farm subdivision, Phase 1, submitted by Nick Croonan, Civil Link LLC, on behalf of Johnny McBride, member, Center Hill Development LLC, property owner. The request is to create 88 lots and 4 common open spaces from 48.28 plus or minus acres. The subject property is Zone PUD Plan Unit Development District, located on the west side of Center Hill Road, approximately 700 feet north of Valley Oaks Drive East and about 1,800 feet south of the Highway 302 and Center Hill Road intersection. The applicant requests to table this until June the 10th, 2025. So I will ask for any discussion or a motion from the commissioners to.
Motion to, I'm sorry, motion to approve request to table.
All right, we have from Ms. Remack the motion to approve the request to a table to the June meeting. Do we have a second?
Second.
Have a second by Ms. Singer. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, so it passed unanimously, and it has been, the application has been approved to extend for next month. Okay, also we have the application to amend the project text for the Oak at Parkview Heights Area 3B, submitted by David Baker, Fisher Arno Incorporated, on behalf of Trey Hart, Mainland MCA Olive Branch LLC, property owner. The request is to permit the development of the area for single-family residential condominium dwellings and to approve the associated preliminary development plan. The 6.96 plus or minus acre subject property is zoned in PUD. Plan unit development is located at the northwest corner of Parkview Oak Circle and Parkview Boulevard. There is an accompanying application to combine lots 1A and 1B into a single lot, and the applicant has also requested to table this until June the 10th, 2025. So I will open it for the commissioners for any discussion or a motion to honor the request to table until June 10th, 2025.
Motion.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Singer to table it, and I think we had a second by Ms. Remack. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay, so this is tabled now to the June 10th, 2025 meeting. Okay, under item number 3 is an application for the first revision to Oaks at Parkview Heights Phase 2 Area 3 subdivision, submitted by David Baker Fisher Arnold, Inc., on behalf of Trey Hart, Mainland MCA Olive Branch LLC property owner. The request is to combine lots 1A and 1B into a single lot 1 of 6.96 plus or minus acres. The subject property is on PUD Planned Unit Development and is located at the northwest corner of Parkview Oak Circle and Parkview Boulevard. Once again, the applicant has requested to table this until June 10th, 2025, so I need a discussion or a motion from the commissioner to honor the request to table until this date.
Motion to table.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Stratton to table this to the June 10th, 2025 date. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Singer. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So the motion is carried and is tabled until June 10th, 2025. All right. Item number 4 is an application for a final plat for Blakely one lot subdivision submitted by the property Jerry Blakely Jr., property owner. The request is to create a one-lot residential subdivision of 1.25 plus or minus acres. The subject property is zone R2, single-family residential district, and is located on the south side of West Sandage Road, approximately 900 feet south of the McNeil Drive intersection known as 7589 West Sandage Road. And we will now have the staff presentation on this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To bring us up to where we are here, we're looking southeast, southwest of where we're sitting today. We'll go follow my cursor here on the right-hand side of the screen. This would represent 305. Could take a left and go west on West Sandage Road, past Ross Road, out to McNeil Drive, as you mentioned, around to the dead end. It would be the property before the dead end would be 7589 on the south side of the road. Mr. Blakely is seeking to build a home on this lot, which is zoned R2, single-family residential. It mainly permits single-family residential homes. The lot is vacant except for some non-running vehicles, which is listed in the conditions to be removed. The utility lines are ran in the vicinity of the property. The infrastructure, public infrastructure is there. All infrastructure going on the property would be the responsibility of the developer of the lot. No variances or deviations are asked for. No waivers are applicable to the plat, and staff recommends approval subject to various conditions. As we did note, the property is zoned R2 as noted here on our map. Property again located south of McNeil Drive towards the dead end. Couple pictures here of the lot. You'll notice, Mr. Chairman, these are the two vehicles that are on the lot. After speaking with Director of Planning, he recommended that the two vehicles be removed from the property before recordation of the plat. After speaking with Mr. Blakely, he informed me that those belong to the next door neighbor and that they would be removed promptly. The two cars located here with the circle also can be noted here on the aerial map. The plat does meet the bulk requirements of the R2 zoning, which is a minimum lot size of 9,000 square feet. This is a 1.25 acre lot. Front setbacks on this plat are 35 feet. Side setbacks noted on this plat are 5. Rear setbacks 25. And minimum width at the building setback line is noted on the plat is 70 feet. The proposed lot meets all the bulk requirements within the zoning district. Next steps. Upon recommendation by the Planning Commission, the plat will be forwarded to the Mayor, Board of Aldermen for consideration. When approved by the said board, the plat would need to be recorded. Once the plat has been recorded, the lot may be sold or building permits may be issued for proposed developments on the lot in accordance with applicable city land development regulations. Again, staff recommends approval of the final plat for the Blakely one-lot subdivision subject to these conditions. Again, bring your attention to the regulation that the condition that the cars be removed before the plat is recorded. It's listed on your report. However, it's not listed on this PowerPoint presentation. That concludes staff presentation.
Any questions of staff? No questions of staff, and this is a plat, does not require a public hearing, so I will open it to the commissioners for any discussion or motions regarding this application.
I make a motion that we approve it subject to the following conditions.
All right, thank you. We have a motion by Ms. Remack to approve this application subject to the staff recommended conditions. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Lewis. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Then the motion is carried and the application is approved. So. And then item number 5 is an application for a preliminary plat for Highland Lake subdivision submitted by Nick Croonin, Civil Link, on behalf of property owner Bryant Cashin, FSB and Company, LLC. The request is to create 20 residential lots and 2 common open spaces from 6.94 plus or minus acres. The subject property is zoned R3 Planned Residential District and is on the west side of Highway 305, just north of College Road on its 4225 Highway 305. And the applicant requests to table this application until June 10th, 2025. So I will open it for any discussion of the commissioners or for a motion to honor the request to extend to June 10th.
Motion to honor the request until June 10th.
All right.
Table the motion.
All right, we have a motion by Ms. Remack to table this until June 10th, 2025. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Stratton. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries, and it has application. It's extended to June the 10th. And this is about the fastest we've gone through a meeting in a long, long time. So I will now, I think the zoning ordinance update. So we'll ask a song for the update.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I think you've tabled today about 4 or 5 items to next month, which means in June you're going to be very busy. And so, in order to avoid a situation where we have a very long June meeting, I think it's necessary for us to touch on a couple of things with respect to the zoning code update today, so that next month we don't have to go into, opening up new chapters as far as the updates are concerned. I think from a process perspective, we are on track to get these updates before the Board of Aldermen sometime within the next 2 months or so, and then to begin working on the map with the goal being to get this first part of the code adopted and the zoning map updated and adopted by the end of this year. So that's a project that is key on my desk at this time. All the updates that you had or the recommendations that you have had so far, there's a kind of a little working group of the Board of Aldermen, about 3 of them that have had a time to look at those. We don't have any major changes from them. The mayor has asked that I engage a couple of developers to have some input. We did publish a draft on the city's website. It's been there for over 6 months. I've not had any feedback from anybody in the public, but we are going to, as the mayor did indicate, engage a number of developers and just kind of have a discussion, with them on this direction we want to go. Or how do you think this may influence development in the city? And just get some feedback, which I will bring back to you at next month's meeting if that feedback affects any particular policy you have recommended to this point. Now, one of the things we decided to do, or which the Planning Commission has recommended as far as those updates are concerned, is to move away from the heavy approach that we've had in the city as far as land use development is concerned, which is plan development. Almost every piece of property in this city is developed using a plan development approach. Project X. Even a 1 acre lot, Project X. We'll move away from that towards a more conventional zoning approach. And when you have major subdivisions, then you have a preliminary plat that comes together with that. In order to have quality development, cities often go one or two ways. Either you stick to that plan development approach, which gives the Planning Commission and the Board of Aldermen the opportunity to review every project in detail, or you need to update the zoning code itself and have certain provisions built in the code that will allow you to have quality development upfront. Otherwise, everything becomes a negotiation on the floor. And the developer is really not bounded by those things in the zoning code if they are not included in the text itself. So if a developer, for example, came in front of the board and wanted to do a commercial development, which you could have quality development if it were a planned development, and it were simply conventional in a particular area, the conditions that the board imposes, if they are zoning conditions, the developer can legally argue that I'm not bounded by those. In the project text, you would be. If they are subdivision conditions, he will be bounded. If they are zoning, it creates a little of a gray area. And so to avoid that, cities often go with creating what are called overlay districts. Overlay zoning districts are essentially regulatory tools that creates a spatial zoning district which is placed over an existing base zone in order to identify special provisions in addition to those in the underlying base zone. What does this mean? So, if you come to the city, for example, let's say you take Goodman Road. I'm just going to take the example of Goodman Road. If you look at Goodman Road in this particular area from Craft to Davidson Road, it's just an example. You've got multiple underlying zoning districts just in this small block. There is a C4 zoning district here, which was planned development. There is a C2 highway commercial. There is a C1 neighborhood commercial. There's a C1 neighborhood commercial. There's even an AR, agricultural residential, just within this short area of the city. I think this is C4. Yeah, that is C4. So if you had a situation where you have undeveloped pieces of properties, for example, this C1 is not a planned development, that is a conventional zoning district, we rezone it, move it to a conventional zoning district, this is also conventional. Whatever name we give to it, whether highway, commercial zoning district, whatever name that we give to it in the new development. But the city wanted to make sure that this corridor develops in a way that it has quality development. The buildings have a particular character. The landscaping looks a particular way. Different from what you may have in another C2 or C1 zoning district on Church Road. Then the way to achieve that will be to create an overlay district. That will basically say, yes, anywhere in the city, there are basic standards for developing in a C1, C2 district. But if that C1, C2 district or any other district exists within this particular corridor, then you have to meet these additional requirements. That enables the city to achieve certain specific goals as far as that corridor is concerned. The purpose of overlay districts, therefore, is to fill gaps where traditional zoning does not address specific or complicated local conditions or sometimes even multi-jurisdictional issues. You can, for example, I take Goodman Road again. Goodman Road goes through Olive Branch, goes through South Haven, goes through Horn Lake. The traffic we have along this road does not only originate from within Olive Branch. originates also from South Haven, Horn Lake, and so on. They call it visitors going in and out using this gateway corridor in the city. Are going through South Haven, Olive Branch, in and out throughout the day. You can, except you're really looking at the signs on the road, you can hardly say when you have entered and when you have left Olive Branch on this road. So there is a bit of an interjurisdictional element. Sometimes the planning department in Olive Branch and the planning department in South Haven may work together and come up with the same zoning overlay district requirements across the entire corridor from Center Hill to Horn Lake. So you can have this interjurisdictional cooperation in the zoning elements. The key two things that we want to achieve as far as the use of these overlay districts are concerned is to be able to control urban design, permitted land uses, density, or other factors within specific areas in the city, and to promote specific development character along and in areas with these different underlying zoning districts. The first one that I want to put before the board now, this is for general, I will not go into details. This is just kind of 10,000 feet level for the board to give me some feedback and let me know if this is something that you think we can do or we should do, and then we will go back and work on the specifics of the regulations. So today is really about getting you a general feel as far as this approach is concerned. One that is very common in cities is areas like airports. Our airport is currently zone M2, that's heavy industrial district. And rightly so, because the heavy industrial district is really the only district in the city that allows you to have uses that can have a certain degree of negative impact significantly on surrounding developments. So in the airport, you have something like a lot of noise. I think there is an industry around this area that produces a lot of smoke or glare. And so it falls properly within the M2 district category. But then, as we look at how the airport is developing, some developers, for example, have shown interest in wanting to build temporary housing for flight school students within this district. The M2 district does not permit any type of housing. You cannot live in the M2 district. If we were to permit housing in the M2 district, as a base district, it would mean that anywhere in the city where you have M2 district, you can have housing there. But this is something that may apply only to the airport and not to M2 district across the entire city. For that reason, you may create an overlay district for just the airport, and in it, we permit that temporary housing subject to specific design elements or specific approvals. For example, it may require review by the Planning Commission and approval by the Board of Aldermen. Because the airport is really public property. It's owned by the city. We may want to have specific building design standards that are approved administratively. I think last month, or so was it this month? Last month, Jason recommended a number of some of those design elements to the Design Review Advisory Committee, which they did approve, basically giving the mayor some powers to be able to approve building designs that use metal administratively. Those are things we may want to codify and have them permanently inside the zoning ordinance, and it will apply only to the airport. Site plans design flexibility. Because of the very nature of the airport, you may want to have certain flexibility in a way that is more adaptive as opposed to strict compliance with the requirements of the design review ordinance. For example, this is the design review ordinance requires that you must have trees, within a certain distance in front of the roads, in front of properties. If you have properties within certain proximity to the airport, do you want to have those trees? Doesn't make sense, for the safety of planes. So there is room to create certain design flexibility that can apply only to the airport. So the underlying district will remain M2 or heavy industrial district, but then you have an overlay district that allows for that flexibility, that gives room for certain design standards in order to address specific issues that pertain only to the airport. So my first question is, does the board think that this is a good idea?
Don't everybody speak at one time here.
Okay. Well, I'm just thinking about this, but it really does need to have specific, rules as opposed to the airport. I don't think we can classify the airport, that just has to be it just has to be different.
Okay. Does Germantown and Carver use their overlay districts? I mean, do they use this?
It's a common, I didn't check specifically for Germantown and Colby. I didn't check on that, but this is used across, as a standard
Many
zoning practice. Yeah.
And also, I guess, staff would prepare the conditions for the overlay district, and then
Yes, if
we
this is
would
something that
approve
the planning commission is interested in, then yes, we'll work on those details and then send them to you as part of your package for next month's meeting.
Okay.
You will have those details.
I think that's a great idea.
yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
I think from a design perspective, I think the overlay districts are definitely beneficial. We deal with, Germantown has them, I've dealt with them before on that, but the main thing is, I really hope it gives staff the flexibility to look at projects on a case-by-case basis, and really see what makes sense and what doesn't. I'll give you an example. We're doing a project in Germantown, and in their code, they're really pushing for parking garages and whatnot in a lot of their city core developments, like at Thornwood, they have parking garages and whatnot. We're doing a project closer to the outside of the city, and we have the space that we can put in the parking spaces that we didn't need to put in a parking garage. So the staff actually had administrative control to say, hey, look, this parking garage thing doesn't really apply to this overlay district, so that's kind of different. And they were able to change that and manipulate it project specific to where things made sense. Doesn't really make sense to have a 20-acre site and then you have to build a parking garage when you want to go out wide. But yeah, from a design standpoint, I think it definitely does make a lot of sense. But my biggest concern is if you put an overlay district across people's properties that are all separate owners and individual types of zoning right now, could that affect their property? Could that affect their property values to make it more difficult for those to develop? If along this corridor, if somebody has a C2 lot right now that they want to develop, they're wide open to do it as long as they follow the design review board, right?
The way the overlay district works is first you have the regulations, and then you get down to the map. And then the map, you have to define how far the overlay district is going to go. For example, let me just take the example of the airport. This can be the boundary of the overlay district, basically from the eastern edge of the airport right up to Hacks Cross Road. You could define that particular area and say that is your airport overlay district. You could shrink it down. You could say, okay, within this particular overlay district, if you are if it's a particular type of use, then it's exempt from these regulations. If it is this other, the key thing here is to be able to get flexibility while preserving or fostering the specificities that are necessary to protect the specific nature of the airport, as a use. I'll give you something very, very simple. Generally across the entire city, you are able to do a retention pond or a detention basin for stormwater management. In an airport overlay district, we will prohibit retention ponds because all that does is it attracts birds, which is dangerous for planes flying into the airport. So that will apply only to this particular area. If you own a C2 zoned piece of property, or even this C3, and you wanted to develop it and you propose a stormwater detention pond, that will be prohibited because it falls within an area which the pond will pose a danger to planes flying into the airport. But if you were, let's say, on Malone Road, yes, you will be able to do a stormwater detention pond, retention pond. So,
I think South Haven has the districts as well, right? They use their overlay
yes,
district.
they use different districts.
The Main Street
And sometimes they have Main Street. In other cases, they use conventional zoning districts that are very applicable to very small areas. and then they make the regulations very stringent and so on. If you go by that approach, you could end up with a situation of 40 zoning districts. I mean, we don't want to proliferate and have too many zoning districts in the city.
I think another thing for, like, just to use that South Haven as an example, their Snowden district worked out really well because all of that was pretty much developed at the same time. Like, it's like the amphitheater was there, but then, like, the majority of that property was empty, and it was all owned by one person who developed it all, right? So I think getting that to work out is a lot easier, but, like, they also have the Main Street district, South Haven does, and, like, that's the state line road corridor from 55 to 51. I believe that's how they have it laid out. But, like, that hasn't done anything in that corridor, you know, because the property values, they vary so much, and it's all different property owners and different uses already, that is all kind of.
Well, something to note about that, the designation of those districts is a bit different from the zoning. Although they call them districts, you know, they may talk of Snowden Grove District, but that's not a zoning district. That is more of a geographical area that has it's more of a branding.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's more about branding
Gotcha.
than land use. Yeah.
The Main Street district, I think they use it for, like, incentives or something like that as well, or whatever. Yeah, I get what you're saying, though.
Yeah, it's more of a branding and economic purposes and all of that than for land use. So this one is for land use. It's not about branding. Yeah. Now,
Well, I would just want us to make sure that we were safely working on the airport. And, you know, I look forward to seeing staff's recommendations.
thank you, ma'am. We will work on that and get a draft to you for next month's meeting. So you will have that included in your packet.
Okay,
It's good. You don't need this
thank you.
in the form of motion. You just want a recommendation to
Yes,
go
yes.
forward.
Just
That's
you don't
good.
need a motion. Just what the commission thinks.
I think it's good to do
Thank you.
so.
The second is a gateway design overlay district. And I'll give you a bit of a background to this. If you look at Olive Branch, gateways are essentially corridors where folks come in and they leave the city, your main corridor. They create a memory. If I'm just a visitor, I may not even be a visitor, just driving through Olive Branch. What I see along that corridor gives me an impression about the city. I don't need to go further down towards College Road or so. And you look at the key corridors in the city, whatever you permit, whatever you do along those corridors will end up defining the city significantly. These are gateways. If you permit junkyards within your gateway, folks driving in and out of your city know that as a junk city. You may have a more beautiful area elsewhere, but your gateway is junky. And so that is the impression anybody gets. Overlay districts are also used to emphasize the character of development within these particular gateways, create that image, a sense of memory as far as the city is concerned. A key gateway in this city is the Highway 302 corridor. There may be others that the Planning Commission wants to consider, but a key corridor is Center Hill Road right now in the city up to Malone Road. That is our highest gateway drive-through in this city. A lot of development in this particular corridor, especially from a commercial perspective, has happened using planned development approach, but we are moving away from that. To make sure that we continue to have developments of specific, nice character within that corridor, a gateway design overlay district may be necessary. It would only extend a certain distance from the street itself. So it doesn't mean if I'm living 1 mile from this road, then I have to build to that standard. Most cities is within 250 feet from the right-of-way on both sides, which often is like the first lots that are actually adjoin that road, most. The idea will be to prohibit certain uses within the corridor. In some cities, you have things like adult-oriented establishments are prohibited within gateway corridors. Transmission tower structures are prohibited. Manufactured home sales, salvage and junkyards, major auto repairs. You don't want folks going through and the whole place looks like the former Sergio site, within your gateway corridor. You don't want it looking like that. Those are some of the uses that cities would prohibit within their gateway corridor. In terms of building facade, what you have here, when Quick Trip was proposed, the project text for Quick Trip was proposed, Shannon Coleman was a planner here at the time who received the application and was working on. She left it halfway and left, and I took over that particular project. These are basically the standards that I made Quick Trip to put in the project text in order for us to have what we have for Quick Trip looking as it looks today. And if you're driving on the interstate, you will notice that you don't see, although Quick Trip is as low in elevation as it is from the interstate, you don't see any rooftop equipment. And when those trees along Highway 305 all grow, you may not even notice that there's Quick Trip behind there. Their initial submission had the trucks along Highway 305. Every business wants visibility. We made them move the trucks on the other side facing their industrial warehouses. So that was all this gateway concept, because we're looking at that particular location as a gateway coming up from 305 into the city of Olive Branch. How do we want it to look like? They had all these provisions inside in terms of minimum 75% natural brick or stone. If you go and look at that side, that is what they have. I think it's almost 100% brick, Jason. Okay. There you have 20% hardcore stucco. I've forgotten the details, but basically these are the standards that Quick Trip developed on. And I think we have used this again for about 2 other projects in the city. Screening of service loading and equipment areas, whether they're on the ground, you need to screen them. No location of ground-mounted mechanical equipment in the front yard. You can always move those things to the side or to the rear. Make your front yard to look more of landscaping, flowers, beauty. That guy sitting there will tell you why. I don't know why, he knows why, more than I do. Full screening of all rooftop units using parapet walls. Use the parapet walls to do the screening. We don't want a situation, it would not be advisable that you have rooftop equipment and then folks just take something and put on top of. Let it be intentional. City planning is intentional. If you want to have good design, have good developments in the city, the decisions need to be intentional, not just accidental. So those are some of the standards, and then signage, we can work on the details, especially making sure that those signs are low. You have flower beds around those, your signs, at the bottom, and the way you design them can really create a corridor that when somebody drives through, you have the impression this is a beautiful city. So that is the concept of a gateway. And then, what about residential subdivisions? Especially, you look at the east, from here going to Center Hill Road. You see, have a lot of vacant land there that's going to develop residential. You may have commercial on some particular notes. Do you want every entrance into a residential development looking like this? This is what you have on the east side. Is this really the best that you want for a gateway corridor in Olive Branch? Or do we want to put some more landscaping elements, on how those entrances should be designed? So some streetscape standards. What does the Planning Commission think about this particular idea?
Yeah, I think it's a great idea, especially with all those residential subdivisions coming up on the east side. It's a great point. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of an eyesore now, and I don't really know what can be done of stuff like this, but yeah, for the future and for newer subdivisions, that's definitely a good thing.
Yeah, and I also think it's a good idea too.
I do too.
All right. Because right now we're able to achieve some of these things using PDs. We're going away from PDs, so they get.
You do, I would say you do have a design review ordinance now, and you do have all of those standards are in the design review ordinance. Now, the plan was to integrate that into our regular, zoning code, to have a unified land development code. So I think all of the ideas are there, but you may not necessarily need to use an overlay district for all of those. So I think we probably want to go back to the drawing board a little bit on that.
The last it's a bit of a new kind of a concept that is showing up in planning and land use planning and zoning in a more emphatic way. It has to do with nodes in cities. Really, 5 main things define every city from a land use perspective. As I drive into Olive Branch, what kind of sign do I see? Beautiful sign that tells me something. In other cities, the mayor with his beautification committee and some of the beautification ideas that he has is doing a lot. If you go to Malone Road, he has put up a beautiful sign there. All of this is trying to define the edges of the city. The paths where we walk through and where we drive through, gateway corridors, those are all paths. Districts, we're talking about Snowden Grove. And almost everybody today, when you talk about South Haven, first thing that comes to mind is Silo Square. Silo Square, that's a district that they have created that is now defining that city. We have Old Town, we are not yet there, as far as Old Town is concerned. Other places use monuments. Go to Washington, D.C., it's all monuments that define that particular city. Most other areas, you think about your nodes, your key intersections, for example, key squares. Nodes are easy. The element about nodes is you can go to nodes, take a city like this, they came to this particular node, and they put this sign, Main Street, just that sign. It defines that city, it defines that particular node. But there is a land use element to it, there is a zoning element to it. If you do not control what is happening at this particular intersection with respect to land use, no matter how much you put this beautiful sign, if I come over here and I put a junkyard, I just spoil everything you're trying to do. I just spoil everything you're trying to achieve. So nodes, there is a land use, there is a zoning element to how we create a sense of memory for nodes in any city. Community nodes provide a focal point for social interaction and they create a sense of place. You can have your underlying zoning district, but if you fall within those particular nodes, you create additional standards that ensure that what you are trying to achieve will create that sense of place. In Olive Branch, for example, you think about the Hacks Cross. If you're entering Olive Branch from the east, coming into the city, the first major intersection is your Hacks Cross Goodman Road intersection. It's a beautiful thing. We now have Oak Park Town Center. I think it's Oak Park Town Center. I always miss the pronunciation of that development. That's going to be a beautiful development right here. The northern section is already developed. Across the street and at that piece right there in the middle, that is a node. How do we want it to look like when it develops? What kind of uses do we want? Do you want to see there? What kind of development standards do you want to see there? That creates that sense of place in the city. You look at this area, these are just examples that we can consider. There may be many others that the Planning Commission may want to identify. You look at this particular intersection for the Cascade. So this is a Cascade location. That is the industrial park. This is Nair Road. This is Quick Trip right here. This is a C4 zone piece of property. There have been all kinds of ideas that have come up as far as this piece of property is concerned. You rezone it and changes it to a conventional zoning district. Well, you got a Cascade across the street, beautiful as it's going to look. If you come over here and you take this sign, just this simple design, and you put on this slope, it slopes this way. Just assume you had that design there. If you don't control what happens to land use and design element generally in a particular intersection, you may kill all the beauty you are trying to create at that particular node. So this is what nodal overlay districts do. They help to enhance and ensure that whatever character, sense of memory that the city is trying to achieve at particular nodes, particular intersections in the city are clearly enhanced. You take exit 1. I'm looking at this particular piece of property. That is going to be torn down someday and redeveloped. That's where you used to have the bingo. Even some of these businesses across the street on Frontage Road, you still have vacant lots there. How do you want them to develop? Where if this eventually moves to, I think there was a talk about this moving to Jason? Pursuit, and that side becomes vacant. What do you have there? That is a gateway entrance location in the city from Memphis. What do you want it to look like? What message does it send across in terms of creating a sense of place? Are there other notes? What development standards do we want to see at this particular note? We can go back and look at some of these. The thing about using overlay districts is you may have development standards that are applicable for commercial development and others across the city. But when it comes to your overlays, you emphasize other elements that will not be applicable. For example, if you have a gateway overlay district that we're talking about, that may not apply along Church Road. If I'm doing a commercial development on Church Road, I don't have to follow the gateway overlay because Church Road will not be a gateway overlay. You can follow all the standards. But if you are along Goodman Road, then you have those additional standards that you meet. So, what does the board think about this nodal idea?
I think it's a good idea. I mean, especially if you get, like you said, you guys had, when you worked with Quick Trip and they actually did all the things that we requested for them to do, even though it wasn't in an overlay district or anything like that. I just think it gets a little tricky, like that exit one that you got, that example that you used there. It's a good point, yeah, if the dealership ever leaves, then whoever's going to redevelop that site is held to different standards, but I don't know. I think you got four corners, and two of them are going to fall within that, and then the other two are not going to be in that. And it's just going to look like, unless we go back and say, hey, okay, we're not going to make you put up signage or whatever the requirements are, and at least do something to them. I mean, to beautify it a little bit.
Whatever exists already exists. It will be grandfathered, but the new regulations will apply if they tear it down. If they tear it down and they want to build something new, then that's when your new regulations come in. If it already exists, it's grandfathered.
Yeah.
And I have seen multiple situations in my professional experience where you go to an intersection, you have two developments coming, they look really beautiful, and the guy across the street is like, I need to tear this thing down and upgrade. I've seen that happen. Folks upgrade their site because the guy across the street is looking far better than I do. It's a customer attraction thing. So I've seen that happen. This is just an example. I'm not saying that on this particular exit 1 intersection, we must make that a nodal community node overlay district. There can be other sites in the city that will be better suited for that.
I would say if we had a developer that had a huge chunk of land and says, hey, look, I actually want to kind of make up an overlay that would kind of just the whole area there, if they were going to do like 30, 40 acres at a time or something.
If you took 30, 40 acres of land, you will still have, because we are not prohibiting planned developments in the city. A developer can still come in and propose to do a planned development, and will establish design standards inside that planned development text. A developer can still do that. What we are trying to achieve is for developments that are smaller in size. Because the cost of writing a project text and designing a project text, I've seen some of these things go up to $100,000, $150,000 just to do the studies and to draw up the text. Vanderburg Flats, that guy said he spent over $180,000. That ended up being denied, So what was the need for all of that if you could do it under a conventional zoning district, just subject to those standards that were already established? It can really save in development costs and still help us to achieve what we want to achieve.
I think it's a good idea to go forward with it, so.
All right, we will work on the details and get them before you in your next package. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I guess now we're at the point to adjourn. Does anyone have anything else, or to have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All right, we have
Motion.
a motion by Ms. Singh, Mr. Singh to adjourn, and second by Ms. Remack. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right,
Aye.
we are now adjourned, so thank y'all.